Ethan Walsh was a numbers guy, the kind who could spot a bad deal in a spreadsheet from across the room. At 38, he'd spent the last decade building a life he never thought possible. Born in a cramped Brooklyn apartment, raised on his mom's diner tips and his dad's cab driver grit, Ethan clawed his way through NYU's business school on scholarships and late-night shifts. He wasn't just smart, he was relentless, the kid who'd outwork anyone to prove he belonged. Marrying Lauren Sterling, 36, was his leap into a world of glass towers and private clubs, a promise to her and himself that he'd match her family's legacy. Together, they lived in a sleek Tribeca loft, all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows, with Manhattan's skyline glittering like a prize he'd earned. Sterling Innovations, Lauren's family tech firm, was Ethan's battlefield. Founded by her father, Richard Sterling, 65, it was a powerhouse of AI patents, the kind that powered self-driving cars and smart cities. Ethan joined 10 years ago, right after their City Hall wedding, and made himself indispensable. When their AI division nearly tanked during a supply chain crisis, Ethan rebuilt it from the ground up, flying to Shanghai to lock in suppliers and pitching to Silicon Valley giants until his voice gave out. Revenue tripled under his watch, and Richard, a gruff old-school entrepreneur, started calling him son. The staff respected him too. Mia, the sharp-eyed accountant, stayed late with him crunching budgets, and Sarah, Richard's longtime assistant, slipped him coffee with a knowing smile, saying, "You're the only one who gets it." Ethan's day started at 5 a.m., his phone buzzing with emails before the coffee pot even gurgled. He'd sit at the loft's marble counter, black coffee in hand, laptop open, scanning market trends while Lauren slept in. She was the creative one, a Wharton grad with a knack for branding, always sketching ideas for Sterling's next big campaign. They'd been a team once, dreaming over takeout pizza about taking the company global. But lately, Lauren felt distant, her smiles forced, her evenings spent at strategy sessions with her sister, Victoria. Ethan brushed it off. She was stressed, he told himself. Running a family empire wasn't easy. Victoria Sterling, 34, was the wild card. A Harvard MBA with a razor-sharp mind and a sharper tongue, she joined Sterling 2 years ago after a stint at a London hedge fund. She walked into boardrooms like she owned them, her tailored suits and icy stare daring anyone to challenge her. To Ethan, she was a puzzle. She'd charm clients one minute, then snap at him the next, her words laced with a subtle dig, not bad for a Brooklyn guy. Ethan let it slide, keeping his polite smile, the one he'd perfected for difficult deals. He figured she'd warm up eventually. After all, he wasn't just Lauren's husband. He was the guy who'd landed the $200 million Tokyo contract that kept Sterling afloat last year. The office, a gleaming tower in Midtown, hummed with ambition. Ethan's corner office overlooked Central Park, a far cry from the Brooklyn stoops of his childhood. He'd walk the floor daily, chatting with coders, shaking hands with sales reps, making sure everyone felt seen. Mia would tease him, "You're too nice for this place." But Ethan knew better. In a world of egos, loyalty was his edge. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Victoria's closed-door meetings with Lauren were more frequent, their whispers cutting off when he walked by. Richard, semi-retired and splitting time between the Hamptons and Palm Beach, hadn't been in the office in months. Ethan kept his head down, focusing on the next deal, a patent licensing agreement that could push Sterling into the Fortune 500. That October morning, Ethan woke with a fire in his gut. The patent deal was ready, and he'd spent weeks perfecting the pitch. He kissed Lauren's forehead, she mumbled something and turned over, then grabbed his briefcase and headed out. The city was crisp, leaves skittering across Hudson Street as he hailed a cab. He rehearsed his talking points, picturing the board's nods, maybe even a clap from Richard if he dialed in. This was his moment, the kind he'd worked for since he was a kid dreaming beyond Brooklyn. Sterling wasn't just a job, it was his proof he'd made it, that he was more than the underdog kid from Flatbush. As the cab pulled up to the tower, Ethan straightened his tie, stepped out, and walked toward the glass doors, ready to own the room. Ethan Walsh stepped into Sterling Innovations' boardroom, his polished shoes clicking on the hardwood floor. The Midtown Tower's glass walls framed a crisp October skyline, but the air inside felt heavy, charged with something he couldn't place. At 38, Ethan was used to high-stakes meetings, but this one was supposed to be his victory lap. He'd spent weeks on a patent licensing deal that could catapult Sterling into the big leagues. His briefcase held the proposal, pages worn from late-night revisions at the Tribeca loft he shared with his wife, Lauren. He adjusted his tie, flashing the polite smile he'd honed for tough clients, and scanned the room. Lauren sat at the far end of the mahogany table, her blonde hair pulled back, her face unreadable. At 36, she was the poised face of Sterling's branding, but today her eyes avoided his. Next to her, Victoria, 34, leaned back in her chair, her sharp Harvard MBA confidence radiating like a warning. Her tailored blazer and smug half-smile screamed control. The board, 10 execs in crisp suits, shuffled papers, their murmurs fading as Ethan took his seat. He expected Richard, Lauren's father, to dial in from the Hamptons, but the screen at the head of the table stayed dark. Odd, Ethan thought, but he pushed it aside. He was here to win. Morning, everyone. Ethan started, his Brooklyn edge softened by years of Manhattan polish. This deal's a game changer. Tokyo's ready to license our AI patents for $300 million. I've got the numbers. Victoria cut him off, her voice like a blade. We're not here for that, Ethan. The room went still. He froze, his hand on the proposal, heart kicking up a notch. What? He asked, keeping his tone steady. Victoria leaned forward, her eyes locked on his. You're fired. Sterling doesn't need dead weight dragging us down. You're out, effective now. The word fired hit like a sucker punch. Dead weight. Ethan had been up until 3 a.m. sealing that Tokyo deal, his eyes burning from screen glare while Lauren slept. He'd rebuilt Sterling's AI division from a supply chain wreck, landed contracts that kept the lights on. Lazy? The accusation stung worse than the dismissal. He turned to Lauren, his wife of 10 years, waiting for her to say something, anything. She stared at the table, her fingers twisting a pen, her silence louder than Victoria's words. The board members shifted uncomfortably, avoiding his gaze. Ethan's chest tightened, a mix of shock and betrayal burning through him. Why? He managed, his voice low but firm. Victoria smirked, tossing her hair. We're moving in a new direction. You don't fit. Simple as that. No explanation, no warning. Ethan's mind raced. Last week, Lauren had kissed him goodnight, laughing about their anniversary plans. Now she wouldn't even look at him. Was this her idea? Or was Victoria pulling the strings? He clenched his jaw, forcing that polite smile back. Fine. Good luck. The words tasted bitter, but he wouldn't give them the satisfaction of a fight. He grabbed his briefcase, stood, and walked out, his footsteps echoing in the stunned silence. The elevator ride down felt like a freefall. Ethan's hands shook, his tie suddenly too tight. Fired. From the company he'd bled for, by the family he'd married into. The midtown streets buzzed outside, but he barely noticed, climbing into a cab and muttering his address. Back in the Tribeca loft, he dropped his keys on the counter, the clink deafening in the empty space. The loft, Lauren's, really, bought with Sterling money, felt foreign now, its sleek furniture and city views mocking him. He sank onto the couch, staring at the skyline, replaying the scene. Victoria's smirk, Lauren's silence. 10 years of late nights, of proving he was more than a Brooklyn kid, gone in a 5-minute ambush. His phone buzzed, snapping him out of the spiral. A text from Mia, the accountant who'd been his ally through every budget crunch. Asterisk heard what happened. You okay? Asterisk Ethan's thumb hovered over the screen. Okay. He was gutted. But Mia's next text stopped him cold. Asterisk they didn't read your contract. Check the AI subsidiary clause. Asterisk contract? He hadn't thought about it since signing it years ago, back when Richard ran things. Frowning, he typed back. What clause? Mia's reply was quick. Asterisk merger from 19. You're still tied to the patents. Big time. Asterisk Ethan's pulse quickened. Patents. Sterling's AI algorithms, worth billions, were the company's backbone. If Mia was right, this wasn't over. He stood, the fog of betrayal clearing just enough to spark something new. Hope. Or maybe defiance. Plot twist. As Ethan rummaged through old files in his home office, his phone pinged again. An email from Sarah, Richard's assistant, forwarded by mistake. Victoria to a board member, saying, Ethan's out, and we'll sell the patents cheap to cover the transition. No one will notice. Sell the patents? That was Sterling's lifeblood, and illegal without his approval. Ethan's anger flared. They hadn't just fired him. They were trying to erase him and gut the company he'd built. Game on. Ethan Walsh sat in his Tribeca loft, the glow of his laptop casting shadows across the sleek hardwood floor. It was past midnight, the Manhattan skyline a silent witness to his unraveling world. At 38, he'd been fired from Sterling Innovations, the tech empire he'd helped build, betrayed by his wife, Lauren, and her sister, Victoria. The email from Sarah. Richard Sterling's longtime assistant, still burned in his mind, Victoria's plan to sell Sterling's AI patents to a rival firm, a move that could bankrupt the company and was illegal without Ethan's approval as co-president of the AI subsidiary. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, the contract from the 2019 merger open on the screen. Page 12, Clause 7. Ethan Walsh, co-president, holds sole authority over patent licensing. Mia, his loyal accountant, had tipped him off, and now the words stared back, a lifeline in black and white. Ethan's phone buzzed, shattering the quiet. A text from Lauren. Ethan, please. Can we talk? I didn't mean for this. His jaw tightened. Didn't mean for what? Sitting silent while Victoria called him deadweight? He pictured her in the boardroom, her eyes fixed on the table, refusing to defend him after 10 years of marriage. The text felt like a ploy, her soft tone a mask for panic. He tossed the phone onto the couch, ignoring it, and leaned back, rubbing his temples. The betrayal cut deeper than the firing. Lauren wasn't just his wife, she'd been his partner, the one who'd laughed with him over late-night pizza, dreaming of Sterling's future. Now she was a stranger. He stood, pacing the loft's open floor, the city lights blurring through the windows. Victoria's email to the rival firm, Nexus Tech, was a bombshell. We'll sell the patents cheap to cover the transition, she'd written, as if Ethan's decade of work was disposable. Without his signature, the deal was dead, but the audacity floored him. Was Lauren in on it? The thought twisted his gut. He grabbed a glass of water, the cold doing little to cool the anger simmering inside. He needed answers, but not from Lauren, not yet. He called Sarah, his voice low to keep it steady. Sarah, that email. What else do you know? Her voice crackled through, warm but tense. Ethan, it's a mess here. Victoria's been meeting with Nexus in secret. She told the board you were uncooperative, spinning it like you're the problem. Lauren's backing her, saying it's for the company. Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. Lauren, backing Victoria's lies? Sarah went on, staff's whispering. Clients are stalling deals because approvals aren't coming. People are scared. Ethan thanked her, hung up, and sank onto the couch. Sterling was crumbling, and they were painting him as the villain. Plot twist. His phone pinged again, a voicemail from Richard, Lauren's father, left an hour ago. Ethan hit play, bracing himself. Richard's voice roared through, raw and furious. Ethan, what the hell's going on? Victoria says you're blocking patents out of spite. I didn't raise my girls to tank my company. Ethan froze. Victoria had gotten to Richard, twisting the story to make Ethan the bad guy. Worse, Richard didn't know about the subsidiary clause or the Nexus deal. Ethan's heart pounded. This wasn't just betrayal, it was a calculated setup to bury him. He called Richard back, the line ringing as he paced. Ethan. Richard answered, voice like gravel. Talk to me. Ethan kept his tone calm, years of boardroom polish kicking in. Richard, they fired me without cause. Victoria's trying to sell the patents to Nexus illegally. Check my contract, 2019 merger, Clause 7. I control the patents. They can't move without me. A long pause followed, then Richard's voice softened, heavy with realization. They didn't tell me. Damn it, Ethan. I'm sorry. I'll dig into this. He hung up, leaving Ethan staring at the phone. Richard's anger was a spark, but Ethan needed more than apologies. He needed leverage. The next morning, Ethan drove to a Brooklyn diner, a gritty spot he and Mia used to hit for coffee between budget marathons. The smell of bacon and burnt toast grounded him as he slid into a booth. Mia arrived, her dark curls pulled back, her eyes sharp with concern. You look like hell, she said, sliding him a coffee. Ethan smirked faintly. Feel like it. What's the word at Sterling? Mia leaned in, voice low. Chaos. 2 clients pulled out yesterday. Suppliers are holding shipments, waiting for your sign-off. Victoria's screaming at everyone, but Lauren, she's just quiet. Like she's scared. Ethan sipped the coffee, the bitterness matching his mood. Scared? Lauren should be. She'd chosen Victoria over him. Mia pulled out her phone, showing him an internal memo. Victoria had announced a restructuring to streamline operations, blaming external delays for the stalled deals. Ethan's name wasn't mentioned, but the subtext was clear. He was the problem. They're covering their tracks, Mia said. But the board's getting antsy. Some are asking about you. Ethan nodded, his mind racing. The patent clause gave him power, but Victoria's lies were turning the company against him. He needed to act, but carefully, legally. Plot twist. As they talked, Mia's phone buzzed with a forwarded email from a junior exec, sent by mistake. It was Victoria to a Nexus VP. We'll bypass Walsh. Legal's working on a loophole. Deal closes next week. Ethan's blood ran cold. A loophole? They were doubling down, risking Sterling's future to cut him out. He saved the email, his anger hardening into resolve. Victoria and Lauren thought they could erase him, but they just lit a fuse. Ethan leaned back, the diner's hum fading as a plan took shape. He wouldn't beg or yell. He'd let their own mistakes bury them, and he'd be ready when they fell. Ethan Walsh stood in his Tribeca loft, the Manhattan skyline a distant blur through the windows. At 38, he'd been gutted, fired from Sterling Innovations, betrayed by his wife, Lauren, and her sister, Victoria, who were now plotting to sell the company's AI patents illegally to Nexus Tech. The email Mia had forwarded, Victoria's smug promise of a loophole to bypass Ethan's authority as co-president of the patent-holding subsidiary, burned in his mind. It was past 1 a.m., the loft's silence heavy, but Ethan wasn't broken. Not anymore. The contract, page 12, clause 7, gave him control over Sterling's billion-dollar patents. They'd underestimated him, and that was their mistake. He sat at his desk, the laptop's glow harsh against the dark. Lauren's text from yesterday, asterisk, can we talk? I didn't mean for this, asterisk, sat unanswered, her words hollow after her silence in the boardroom. Ethan's anger had hardened into something sharper, resolve. He wasn't the kid from Brooklyn scrambling to prove himself anymore. He was done playing nice, done swallowing Victoria's insults and Lauren's excuses. But he wouldn't stoop to their level, no outbursts, no revenge. He'd fight smart, legal, and relentless, using the power they'd forgotten he had. Ethan drafted a notice to Sterling's partners, clients, suppliers, investors. Short, professional, devastating. As co-president of the AI subsidiary, I'm freezing all patent approvals until leadership clarifies operational terms. He cited the 2019 merger clause, signed it, and copied the board. His finger hovered over send, heart pounding. This would paralyze Sterling, deals would stall, shipments would stop, stock would tank. Lauren and Victoria would feel the heat, and Ethan would stay untouchable. He hit send, the email whooshing into the void, and leaned back, a flicker of satisfaction cutting through the pain. The next day, Ethan met Mia at their Brooklyn diner, the clatter of plates and coffee refills grounding him. Mia slid into the booth, her eyes wide. Your notice landed like a bomb, she said, sipping her latte. 3 clients called, freaking out. Suppliers are holding back. Victoria's yelling at everyone, but Lauren, she's unraveling. Ethan nodded, stirring his coffee. Unraveling? Good. Lauren had chosen Victoria's lies over him. Let her squirm. Mia leaned in. The board split. Richard's pushing for you, but Victoria's got her allies spinning you as the bad guy. Ethan's jaw tightened. He'd expected pushback, but the betrayal still stung. Plot twist. Mia pulled out her phone, showing a leaked board email. Victoria had hired a hotshot lawyer, Claire Vance, to neutralize Ethan's clause, claiming it was a clerical error from the merger. Worse, Lauren had signed off on it, her name scrawled next to Victoria's on the legal request. Ethan's stomach dropped. Lauren wasn't just complicit, she was actively trying to erase his power. The diner's hum faded as he processed it. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was war. Ethan drove to a midtown cafe to meet Lauren, curiosity outweighing his anger. She begged for the meeting, and he wanted to see her face, to know if any piece of the woman he'd loved was left. The cafe was cozy, soft jazz in the background, but the air felt charged as Lauren walked in. At 36, she looked drained, her blonde hair limp, her eyes red. She slid into the booth, forcing a smile. Ethan, I'm so sorry, she started, voice shaky. Victoria pushed this. I didn't know it'd go this far. Ethan leaned back, arms crossed, his face blank. You sat there, Lauren. You let her call me deadweight. Now you're signing off on her lawyers. Her eyes widened, caught. I thought it was legal, she stammered. Claire said. Claire's wrong. Ethan cut in, voice low and steady. You both are. You fired me like a stranger. Now you're trying to rewrite my contract? Deal with it. Lauren's hands trembled, picking at her napkin. We need you, Ethan. The company's falling apart. Please, just sign off on the patents. He took a sip of water, letting her words hang. The charm that used to melt him, her soft voice, Her pleading eyes felt empty now. "You made your choice," he said, standing. "Good luck." He walked out, the cafe door swinging shut behind him, his heart heavy but his resolve ironclad. Back home, Ethan called Richard, forwarding the Nexus email and Claire's legal move. "They're desperate," Ethan said. "Victoria's trying to sell the patents, and Lauren's backing her. Check the contract, it's airtight." Richard's voice was grim. "I trusted those girls, Ethan. I'll handle the board. Stay sharp." Ethan hung up, the loft's silence now a comfort. He wasn't fighting for Lauren anymore, or even for Sterling. He was fighting for himself, for the kid who'd clawed his way out of Brooklyn, for the man who'd built something only to have it stolen. Plot twist, Sarah texted late that night. Asterisk Victoria's meeting Nexus tomorrow. They're rushing the deal before the board can stop it. Asterisk Ethan's pulse raced. Victoria wasn't just reckless, she was risking Sterling's collapse to save face. He saved the text, his mind spinning. The notice had shaken them, but it wasn't enough. He needed to turn the board, expose Victoria's lies, and lock in his leverage, all without breaking the law. Ethan poured a coffee, the pot hissing like a cheer, and sat down to plan. They tried to break him, but he was just getting started.